Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Councilmember Steve Rao, also the host of Murchie's Leaders and Legends, and we're honored today to have a very special edition live broadcast on Radio Murchie, which is on 99.9 FM HD4, 1490 AM, and 101.9 FM. It's also being aired in some other cities in the U.S. And this is a Black Lives Matter pre-March virtual town hall where we have one of the organizers of the protest, a good friend of mine, James Sawyer. Him and his wife, Tina, are organizing this protest today. And so we have him as a special guest to talk a little bit about this event, which begins at 1 o'clock. And we're going to talk about that at the end of this interview. So James, thank you for being here with us today. We're so honored to have you, and thank you for organizing this protest today.
Oh, it's my pleasure and my honor to take this on and join you as well.
Great. Well, we wanted to make this interactive. We're streaming this live also, by the way, on my Facebook page, and we'll be rebroadcasting this tomorrow at 4 o'clock on our show on Sunday. But talk to me a little bit about just a little bit of your background. You live in Morrisville. You're a technology guy. We've known each other for a long time, and a little bit about what brought this about for you.
Sure. So, you know, I've been in Morrisville now for a little over 10 years. I've seen it kind of grow up a little bit and expand, and I'm extremely proud to be here. We have a great mix of people here and just a great small town feel with a pretty good sized population at this point. So yeah, I've spent the last 10 years or so in technology support, working with all sorts of people from all around the globe. And it's fantastic. I get a chance to meet a lot of really cool people. As to why I'm doing this, well, I can go back to childhood. I grew up in Connecticut, and my father and mother were nice people, but racist nonetheless. And as I grew up, I kind of grew up with that all around me, surrounding me. And as I became an adult and I got a little bit older and started to meet people of different races and different religious backgrounds and cultural backgrounds, I started to realize that people are people, and that racism needed to die with me. And so I made a conscious effort to kind of take all that I'd heard as a young man and just strip it away and start looking at things from a new perspective. And so as I do things like this, I became more of an activist for people. And this specific event was triggered, of course, by George Floyd's murder. And a person here named Matthew Zagori, who's a member of my community, who started putting up signs in my neighborhood. And I was like, man, he's actually getting out there and doing something. And I need to put my money where my mouth is and get out there and do something as well. And that's kind of how all this was born and kind of came to fruition very quickly. It took about 10 days for this all to come together, which is pretty quick considering the number of people we can expect to see today. And all of the support from town leadership, including the mayor and yourself and the town council and the chief of police, Patrice, has really supported this from day one. So
That's fantastic. And you know, I mean, what did you know, what was your feeling when you saw visibly what was happening to George Floyd, and your reaction in terms of being not only a citizen, but a father and a husband? And
sure.
just, what did you feel
cried
inside?
out for his mama. You know, and that's a hard thing to hear when you hear a man crying for his mama. To me, though, that the George Floyd is kind of that straw that kind of it broke the camel's back and really got people going. But there's nothing new here, right? This has happened far too many times and caught on video, and people were still kind of saying, well, it's just a few bad police officers. But there's certain kinds of jobs you just can't have that mentality, and to me, policing is one of them. And so yeah, when I saw what was happening there, it broke my heart. You know, that man had a family, and although you know, he definitely had a troubled past, it doesn't make him a bad person, and nothing he did in his past deserved the death penalty, especially not out on the street while 3 other police officers watched what happened. And I was equally as upset that 3 other officers stood there and watched what he did. as I was with him for doing it. Those people are complicit, and that's kind of what we're talking about here is, we're doing this march for police reform and accountability, and try to, we're doing this march, and you can't change the world with one march, but what you can do is change a few minds and open up people to a new perspective. And that's what we're hoping to do is, kind of help people understand their anger as well as do something with it that's in a positive way. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. And I think, what do you want? And that was a good segue into my next question. So we're doing this peaceful march protest today, which starts at the Cedar Fork Community Center at 1:00. And then what do you want us to do as a community moving forward in terms of, what other things would you like to come out of this? So would it be more conversations, more talks about this?
It's primarily to help people see a new perspective, and sometimes perspective can be just taught with age, and sometimes it has to be kind of thrust to the forefront and be shown without a lot of time. And we don't have time to have people slowly gather perspective. People are dying. We need to kind of push to the forefront and get it onto people's minds and make them start to rethink, their perspective and start to understand. One of the things that I see too much of is, when somebody says Black Lives Matter, somebody comes along and says all lives matter. And that bugs me in a way that I can't truly express yet, but it's understanding the perspective. It's, if your house is on fire, do you want the firemen to go 4 doors down and work on a house that's not on fire? Yeah, well, both houses matter, but one's on fire. Let's fix that one first, right?
Yeah.
And what I hope to, and is open dialogue between the community and the police and the leadership to start moving forward on some ideas. And Patrice is already there, accountability. She actually announced the duty to intervene just yesterday, I believe, and body cameras, which I know are coming very soon. And one of the things that I haven't had a chance to discuss with her yet is, maybe a civilian review board for things where there's a complaint made. Morrisville's a small town, and we have a very small police department, and we have an opportunity to make changes here probably faster than a community like Raleigh, where there's such a large population and a large police force. And so I want us to kind of lead the way. I want us to be the light for the community, and to show other towns in the county, in the state, and even in the national level, how we can affect change and how we can affect accountability for these things. And honestly, it's also a matter of the community just opening dialogue to each other. Make sure you're talking to your neighbors and getting to know them, and showing some love. Love is the one thing that we could all use right about now, So, and that's another big part of this.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I'm going to be talking about some of that today. But I think at the end of the day, I think what I really love about this is, if you're listening today and you have an idea that you want to share with Jim or me or the council or Chief Andrews, please share your ideas. Don't be silent about it. And even if you don't agree with us, we want to hear your perspective. I think there's sometimes it's so easy just to be with the people that agree with us. And I've had some wonderful conversations with people that actually called me that were concerned about this, not in a bad way, but they just were concerned about, the violence that occurred in Raleigh. And then when I talked to them about how this came about, they were totally on board and they're actually coming. So I could have easily just said, delete, I don't want to talk to them. So I think just the fact they said, Steve, we're just appreciative of the fact that you were called us back and you listened to us and you explained why we're doing this.
Sure.
And I think that, this isn't a Republican or Democratic thing. This is about the United States and
Human
kind of country. Yes.
It's not even a United States thing. It's a human rights issue, whether you're here in America, you're in Europe, or in Asia, or in Africa. Everywhere needs to have a better understanding of each other, America kind of is that shining light because we're such a mixed culture. Even inside of America and Americans, you have the Southern culture and the Northeastern culture. But understanding each other is so important, and showing love for the differences, not just accepting or tolerating differences, but actually showing love, because different people have different perspectives, and all of them can combine to create a great town, city, county, country. And that's where we're rolling in. Of course, I love the people that were concerned about it, because I was too. I was very careful in how I worded things, and I was very careful in how it spread. I certainly don't want to see any violence today. I don't want to see anybody. There's going to be a lot of kids there, so I don't want to see a lot of angry talk. A lot of that. I want to see us do a peaceful march and open dialogue. I was so excited when Chief Andrews jumped at the chance. I mean, like within a few hours of me posting up the first notice about it, she was on the phone with me like, hey, I want to be a part of this, and I'd love to join in on this. And that tells me volumes about her character. So yeah, I was very excited to see her join in on this. And of course, spacing issues, social distancing, but we worked on that as well. And we think we got a really good opportunity here to do a great thing.
That's great. And do you think that, a couple more questions before we let you go, the inclusivity of Morrisville, the diversity of Morrisville, what better town to have in a town that is represented by almost every country in the world, many from India, China, we have all over the world, we even have a lot of Bulgarians in Morrisville. Just people from almost every nationality. So don't you think that there's a larger conversation here, in addition to just being about racism towards one group, of how important diversity and inclusivity is for innovation, for healthy, and you and I are both in the technology industry. We see this every day. Innovation is by the diversity that we have, right?
Sure. And what I'd say that with the advent of the internet, the world has gotten smaller, not necessarily larger, but it's created a lot of echo chambers and divides that we need to kind of close up. And one of the things, Morrisville has got a great diversity of people from all around the world. Innovation-wise, everybody's got this different perspective, and what problems that people are facing. The problems that people are facing in China may not match the problems that people are facing in India or America. And so to have everybody together to be able to create unity and diversity and new technologies is fantastic. We are right in the middle of RTP, right? So we have a lot of people in the tech sector, and it's great to have a lot of different perspectives and different cultural diversity to help in creating solutions to problems all around the world.
Fantastic. And you said a lot of kids are going to be there, so hopefully this will be an opportunity for our kids to see this and use it as an example of what leadership is about, which is stepping up and having a conversation and it's facing it.
And in that case, with the kids being there, it's not just about understanding racial issues or things like that, but it's really about civic responsibility and accountability and getting involved. And these young folks get an opportunity because they're going to carry the torch. You and I were a little bit on the older side, and these guys need to really carry the torch forward. They're the generation that can kill racism.
Yes.
They have that opportunity just the same way I did. They could realize their parents might have been wrong, and they can move forward. And they have an opportunity, and every new generation has that same opportunity. We just need to help them learn and show them how to do it. And to me, this is a great opportunity to show them how to push forward, progress and make change in the world, and know that, no one person can change the world, but if one person affects two, affects four, they can have a growth and a movement that can change the world.
That's fantastic. We're streaming this live on Facebook. If there's anyone that has any questions, I got a couple that just came in. One question is they just wanted to know about what time it starts and where they're supposed to be.
So we'll open up to the gathering probably probably about 12:45, and then we'll try to get started at 1. So, I mean, that's the start time, and then we're hoping once we have our speakers, we may get started actually doing the walk anywhere between 1:15 and 1:30. Depending on how long people go through their speeches. And then we should be by the public safety at 2, and everybody should be ready to go about 3. And of course, they'll have to walk back to their cars that they parked on the other side of the street there. But yeah, and I know the police have shut down the 2 lanes to allow us to do some social distancing and things like that. So it should be all the way back as well.
Okay, fantastic. I just got a question that came in. And by the way, if you have a question, please, now's the time. You can just type it in the chat. And sometimes people ask questions right at the end. Lots of people are seeing this right now. One question that I got from me is, how do we know that Morrisville's police department is doing things to monitor these situations? So first of all, I just want to let everyone know listening, the chief has issued a couple of statements. I'll be putting those on my Facebook site and my next newsletter, but at a really high level, no police department in North Carolina or probably anywhere in the country would allow chokeholds and putting people's feet on the necks. That's just not accepted in any police department. There's also a very stringent process of being interviewed to be a police officer. They have to go through bias training, personality training, live simulations. I mean, we're talking a 4 or 5 months, sometimes 6-month process before a badge is put on them. It's a very emotional moment, actually, when I've gone to a few swearing ins, and it's just an amazing moment to see these police officers take an oath and to do what they're doing. And we want to thank all those police officers doing that. James also alluded to body cameras. So we actually have invested in body cameras, and we actually have a town hall meeting on that on Monday through a Facebook Live to the town of Morrisville, where they're going to be talking about body cameras, and the public will have an opportunity to understand that. So there's just all kinds of standards and procedures that the town of Morrisville does, along with all our other peer jurisdictions, Cary, Raleigh. And the other thing is Chief Andrews has initiated a lot of community policing. So if you ever want to have a police officer come out, there's like coffee with the cop, cocoa with the cop last Christmas, where they just come out and talk to citizens. And Councilmember Garamella has invited them to Breckenridge for when we have the Spring Fest where they come and interact. And so this is a good opportunity for us to be able to talk with our police officers, and they can learn about different cultures. And so I just wanted to lay that out there for that question, is that we are aware of it, and we are doing everything we can to make the public feel comfortable. That and then there's no random stops. So the other thing, and Satish gets asked in this question a lot, is that if you exceed the speed limit, you'll be pulled over, or if you're not, your seatbelt isn't fastened, or if your tags are expired, and they'll ask you where you live, and they'll get data, and they have to track that data. So it goes in a database. So every week or month, they'll go through and see how many stops were made, where were the stops made. So you see these patterns. And James, we've been talking about having open data as well, so we can put that out there for the public to see. So I think that's important to get out there. These questions are coming in a lot, and I just want to make sure that we're open. And Jim had a good idea of task force and different things that citizens can do, which I think is a great idea, right?
It creates transparency, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that's probably the number one thing that that lacks in a lot of these big cities is people don't know what the police are doing, and so you take incidents and you kind of draw conclusions from 1, 2, 3 incidents. And there's an old saying, if you're in the middle of a forest and every tree around you is on fire, you believe the whole forest is on fire, and it may not be, right? Because you're looking at data that's only right around you. So yeah, transparency is very important. It opens up people's minds, and it settles some concerns that they have. And so that's another thing that I'll continue to work with Chief Andrews, hopefully beyond this, and help her to understand a community perspective. And I want other people to do that as well. I don't want to be like the only person that's having these discussions, because then how long do you trust me? So I want other people to have these discussions as well, and put that out there, because transparency coming from one person isn't really transparency. It needs to be a group effort.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point, and that's a great way to end. I think if there's any one quick question, we just had a chat come in,
Sure.
opendatapolicing.com, opendatapolicing.com. So that's a website where data is being used to help with these transparency issues
Hmm.
from law enforcement. So I think that's really important to get out
Very
there.
cool.
That we live in a very technology sophisticated town with a lot of IT people, so we can work together as we have a smart city initiative and open data initiative. What are the kinds of things that we can do? Um, as we close out the interview, and we'll wait for questions as they come in, I think one great way to end is that, I played for some youth leaders a few weeks ago, Robert Kennedy's speech when MLK was assassinated. And it's hard to believe that that speech was 52 years ago. And he talked about the very same things we're talking about. And basically, he said that we have a choice of what kind of a country we want to live in. And,
Hmm.
we could be divided and full of hate and bigotry and anger towards one another, or we could try to have more compassion and love and unity. And we have the choice. I mean, and so I think that's a great way to end, is that we are today showing our choice of what kind of a country we want to live in.
Absolutely.
And I
100%.
think, yeah, and these kids, when they read, they read about these figures like they're just, it's almost like, historical figures that are folklore legends that you
Yeah.
read in a book. But these were people that lived through dark, tough times, that were willing to get uncomfortable. And a lot of times we forget that,
Grow
Dr. King and,
I'm in a comfort zone, right? You got to get outside your comfort zone, and you got to feel the pain
right,
to continue to grow as an individual. And yeah, if you're not growing, it's you're dying. So keep growing and keep learning, and keep trying to understand and accept people for who they are.
right. I think that's great. Well, I can't thank you enough, and your wife and all of the volunteers, for organizing this. I know it's taken a lot of time, and we want to thank you for doing this quick town hall with us pre-March event. And also for all the listeners on Facebook, for all the listeners on the radio, we want to encourage you to come, and not only come to this March, but to be more involved in the conversation as we continue to build a very innovative and inclusive community in Morrisville, which we want to share with everyone across the great state of North Carolina. So thank you so much,
Fantastic. Thanks,
Mr.
Steve.
Sawyer.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll be back. This will be airing at 4 o'clock on Sunday, and I think we'll see you at Cedar Fork Community Center in about an hour.
I'll see you there.
Yeah, thank you
All right.
so much. You've been on Murchie's Leaders and Legends, one of the largest South Asian radio stations in the state of North Carolina, also aired in Baltimore and Philadelphia, and we'll be back next week for another edition. Thank you so much.